This technique describes a medial meniscal root repair in conjunction with an implantable shock absorber. This allows a combined technique for early partial weight bearing. Here you can see arthroscopic images of significant chondral wear on the medial femoral condyle. This was noted after chondroplasty, and then smoothing out the loose flaps and then turning attention to the medial meniscal root, cleaning up the footprint with an arthroscopic shaver as well as a curette, and then using an arthroscopic suture passer to pass luggage tag sutures through the posterior horn of the medial meniscus. Here you can see a pediatric ACL guide. You can also use a specialized root repair guide, and then passing a nitinol wire up through into the tibia. Turn your attention to the incision for the meniscus. An approximately 10 centimeter incision is made from the medial epicondyle down to the pes, cheating just posterior to your prior stab incision from the root. Raise skin flaps, proximal, distal, anterior, and posterior, and identify the MCL. Release the pes fascia here, just marking the anterior border of the MCL, and then placing a needle just 3 to 4 millimeters posterior to the anterior border of the MCL and tapping it into the subchondral bone along the medial tibial plateau. Here, check fluoro to confirm this is the correct placement. Then you take the meniscus guide and you essentially set it at the needle at S and align it with the MCL fibers. Place a K-wire into the center hole at the medial epicondyle. Then you're going to check the knee inflection and confirm that it lengthens and it moves from S to L in 90 degrees of flexion. At this point, you can put the spacer in, sliding the spacer over that proximal K-wire and placing a second K-wire into the tibia. Just line the spacer up with the MCL fibers. You can then remove the spacer and put the trial. You slide the trial over the K-wires, lining up the slots in the trial, and then rotate the femoral component under the VMO and then align the tibia to be parallel to the joint line. You then place 2 additional K-wires through the trial. After placing the second K-wire, then you can check with a feeler gauge to make sure that there's adequate clearance between the implant and soft tissue. And then you place 2 Steinmann pins proximal, 2 Steinmann pins distal. You can check the trial in extension as well as flexion. The trial is secure, and you can check in extension to confirm that it's on the wide part of the flag, and as you flex it on the narrow part of the flag and that it rotates easily. You can then remove 2 K-wires proximal and 2 K-wires distal, just leaving the Steinmann pins. Remove the trial, place the actual implant over the Steinmann pins. At this point, you can secure the implant with the locking screws. You can place the screws on power, but then finally tension with the torque driver. Remove the Steinmann pins, check the knee through a full range of motion. It should loosen in flexion and spin easily, and turn your attention back to passing the sutures with the nitinol wire through the tibia. Here you can see pulling the sutures on the root down through that stab incision. When you put the posterior screw in on the tibia, you may catch the nitinol wire. So beware putting in the screw. And if when you try to pass the sutures through the tibia with the nitinol wire, if you encounter resistance, you should back up that posterior tibial screw, pass the sutures, and then put the screw back in by hand. This may lock in the sutures, but I still would recommend backing this up on the tibia with either a swivel lock or another type of interference screw.